Hey everyone, it's Susan Pierce Thompson, and I'm here with Julia Carroll. Hey Julia.
Hi.
Hi. So we're going to do an interview today. We've been doing these lately. This is maybe our sixth or something like that. Julia Carroll is in Grass Valley, California. Yep. And she's in her beautiful house. I've been to her house. It's stunning. It's fabulous. And Julia Carroll is, you're coming up on 5 years of Bright Line Eating. Is that right?
June 5th will be 5 years.
June 5th will be 5 years.
Yes.
You are one of the originals, one of the original Brightliners. Oh, sweetheart. Thanks for joining me. Thanks for joining me.
Well, thanks for inviting me, I think.
I'll be gentle. I promise.
Of course you will.
Yeah.
You don't have to be.
Oh, I don't have to be. Let's talk about your story. You have such a fascinating story. And let me also just pause here and say, hi, everyone. Comment down below. We want to hear from you. And in particular, we want to know as this unfolds, if you have any questions for Julia. You'll soon find out. She's fascinating. So in a second, we'll pause and take comments, find out who's here joining us live. But Julia, take us back, because you have been quite a powerful force for change in the world, right? And so I lately have often been comparing what we need to do around our food in terms of societal transformation to what we did with smoking, right? We changed our perception, our laws, our social norms around smoking from 1969 when the Surgeon General thing came out, all the way fast forward to today. The number of people who smoke has more than cut in half. Our laws have changed. It's not legal to advertise cigarettes to kids. It's not legal to smoke in restaurants, on airplanes, etc. When I was a kid, of course, there was smoking on airplanes and pretty much everywhere.
Elevators.
Right? Elevators, right? I often tell the story of how when I was born, June 29th, 1974, in the hospital, my mom was on one side of the room and there was a little curtain divider, and then there was this other couple in this other bed. And my mom was doing her Lamaze breathing, and the husband across the curtain was smoking cigarettes. And my dad was trying to get the nurses to make him stop smoking. And they were mad at my dad. They're like, sir, you have to calm down. And he's like, what do you mean I got to calm down? This guy's got to stop smoking. My wife is trying to deliver a baby. She's doing Lamaze breathing, trying to deliver a baby. And they're like, sir, if you do not get a hold of yourself, we will eject you from this hospital. He's like, you're crazy. What do you mean? It's not he's got to stop smoking. So you were involved in this change that happened. Describe your role in all that around smoking,
Well, I was kind of in like Bright Line Eating. I was in early, but in the second wave, I was actually on my way back to college for the second time, I thought, and I needed a job. And I saw an ad to work in an office in Berkeley, in a no smoking office, which was very rare. There weren't any. And I applied because I've always been allergic to, we didn't even have a word for it back then, but I didn't like smoke. So I ended up working there kind of accidentally and taking over the joint shortly thereafter. And I worked there for the better part of 22, 23 years as executive director for most of that. Americans for Non-Smokers' Rights. We started out as a state organization, turned into a national organization. Our board members wrote the very first ever local ordinances, worked at the local level, helped organize coalitions. I worked on the airline smoking ban for 5 years. I'm one of 5 individuals thanked in the congressional record for my work on the airline smoking ban.
Woo!
Yeah,
I've been to your house and there was a signed thing from the president.
That was for later on. I was invited to the White House and met Bill Clinton in the White House. I got to meet all kinds of people, Surgeon General Koop, all kinds of people, and do all kinds of things. But it was embarrassing because I could make all this change for people. And then later I left that job and moved up to Grass Valley and became a radical therapy coach, which was kind of helping people make change in themselves, but very connected in a way, because it really looked at the cultural reasons for our issues, our internalized oppression, privilege, oppression, some of the stuff you've been looking into just this year, really looking at power and privilege and all that jazz, and empowering people, right? So all my life and before non-smokers' rights, I worked in environmental education. So I was empowering kids. So I've been all about change and empowerment, and yet I couldn't do the thing I wanted to do the most for myself. I couldn't do it.
Which was?
Get into a bright-sized body.
Yeah.
I honestly thought that was just never going to happen.
Yeah.
I'd given up. I was doing, I think you talked about this, I was doing the best I could do, which was to accept that everybody is beautiful and, try to love myself anyway. And I've never believed in body shaming. And I did a lot of, work in that arena. I've always been around alternative type communities and, but
you couldn't get all the way, there was something missing, in part also because your health was atrocious. Like, you're a case study in the book, the first book, right?
Right.
I almost want to pull it out. I've got the book right here. You got these amazing before and after pictures, and just saying, it's like 3.5 years after this was published, and your transformation is solid. Like, you're still cruising along, right?
Well, I feel like, so I have a question for you. I feel like a, crystal vaser with sugar and flour, because I've never, ever, ever had a bite in 5 years, not one. And I tell my mastermind group, I'd be just as likely to eat a box of Kleenex. It just isn't food. It's not food. It's poison for me. It really is. But as you know, I've struggled with, I've really gotten very interested in how quantities are addictive.
Yeah.
Because I can overeat. I heard you in one of your calls this week with somebody.
Where's your case study, sweetie? I'm flipping through.
I think, 160 something, 167 maybe, or something like that.
I'm about to. Yeah, there you are, 167. Yeah. 167.
Isn't it embarrassing that I know that?
No, of course you know that.
Do you know why I agreed to do that?
Well, I mean, is there a part of you saying, like, oh, I shouldn't even have ever looked at my, of course.
I don't know. I'm proud of it, but I was also embarrassed. But the reason I wanted to do it is I wanted to throw my backpack over the wall. Right. I would be so embarrassed to be, if people go and look for your book and say, okay, let's see, where are these people now? I don't want to be the one that they find that gained all their weight back.
Yeah, totally.
So that's why I did it.
It's a good rationale. And there's this table in there that has your before stats. Your total cholesterol was 323.
Yeah.
Triglycerides were 300, essentially, 299.
Yeah.
Your fasting glucose was 103. Your blood pressure was 160 over 132. And,
with blood pressure medicine.
With blood pressure medicine. Your highest weight was 204, and you're just 5'2.5". Yeah.
And that was my highest weight that I knew of.
Yeah.
I stopped going on the scale, I didn't want to be on the scale. When I joined Bright Line Eating, I was down to a very slim 198.
Yeah. Yeah, totally. And your doctor just told you that you were pre-diabetic, right?
Oh, I was definitely pre-diabetic. Not only that, they shouldn't call it pre-diabetic because it is a disease. It's not pre-anything. I already had some neuropathy in the bottom of my feet.
Mm-hmm.
I think I already did some damage.
Yeah.
Yeah, I was feeling like I was 80 something years old. I used to get up out of the chair and tell my husband, I feel like an old lady. And I was 58 when I first found you, and I didn't know what 58 was supposed to feel like, so I didn't know how bad it was. Well, I'll tell you, I feel like I'm 20 now. So, and I'm about to be 63. It's interesting. My birthday is next week, and it was just a few days after my birthday that I started Bright Line Eating, and my BLE day means more to me than my birthday.
Wow. So how did you find Bright Line Eating? So few people knew about it back then. How did you?
Well, I was, Facebook friends with a woman I'd met in a business course, an online course. I was learning online stuff called Marketing for Hippies was the course. Tad Hargrove, Marketing for Hippies. And there was a woman, and I don't know, we became Facebook friends, and she's thin, and she posted one of your videos. And she said, I've never had a weight problem, but this woman makes a lot of sense to me, so I'm posting it. And I thought, what does someone who's never had a weight problem know? I mean, I had tried everything. So why I clicked it, I will never know. And why I listened to you, I will never know. But that's why I tell you it's you. Because the messenger spoke to me. You had me at leptin. But why I listened before leptin, I don't know. You know what I mean? I didn't know what leptin was. And I didn't know what leptin resistance was. But when you explained like the hijacked brain, I was like, that's it. That's me.
Yeah.
That's me.
Yeah.
So for some reason, and I've always been a rebel, I do not know how to follow rules. It's really funny that you had me do the cookbook because I don't follow a recipe.
Yeah. Yeah.
I do not follow rules, but for some reason, I did just about everything you told me to do in that boot camp. Why? Why did I do that?
Yeah, I know. It's like a galactic mystery. I so hear you. I don't know why I was willing to do it either. I was 28 when I first started not eating sugar, not eating flour, putting my food on the scale. I don't know why I did it either. And I could just as easily imagine the story up to that point and like, no, I'm not going to do that. That's ridiculous, right? Like, you know, I don't know.
I'd heard of FA. I had friends who lost weight in FA. I thought they were crazy. I remember telling them that I don't want to live a life without flour and sugar. You go ahead. I'd rather be fat.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
I think secretly, I just didn't believe I could.
Yeah. Let's go to the comments here. We've got a whole bunch of people want to say hi to you, Julia. So Samantha Brown is here. She says,
hi, she's my guacamole sister.
That's what she said. Well, she called you my avocado sister. She says, I love you, Julia. Greetings from Toronto, my avocado sister. Amy Norberg is here. She says, when I read the book, I loved the stories. Such beautiful editing, such a beautiful job. Sue Treforo says, I love this woman already. Kate Patchmore says, I love these interviews. They're so inspiring. Love the energy here. Thanks, SPT and Julia Carroll. Chrissy Hardy says, oh my goodness, thank you so much. My whole family appreciates the no smoking movement. Yes, totally. Oh, just thank you for clean air. Shanda Sherpa says, I might never have found Bright Line Eating if Julia Carroll hadn't posted her before and after photos 4 years ago. So proud of her accomplishment and mine too. You have impacted people. You've shared your story on Facebook and it's brought people in. Jane Grossman says, Julia is an amazing person. We can thank her for getting smoking banned from airplanes and restaurants.
It's Jane's birthday today.
Oh, happy birthday, Jane. Happy birthday, Jane.
And Jane has read Bright Line Eating too, even though she's not at all overweight. But she tells everybody about it. Jane's one of my heroes.
Yay. Mayor Masterson says, thank you for your hard work to accomplish that major change. Excited to see someone who inspired me from the book over 2 years ago, here today and still bright and amazing. And Joe Point says, I'm a little in love with Julia Carroll. It's so sweet. So sweet. Post your questions if you've got any questions for Julia, and we're just going to keep going here. So let's go back, Julia. Were you overweight as a kid, or were you just a normal sized kid?
You know, they called me Fuffy Puffy when I was a toddler.
Fuffy Puffy?
Fuffy Puffy was my nickname, my family nickname. I was a little bit chubby as a toddler, and then I was a regular weight, not skinny, but not overweight child.
Yeah.
And as soon as I hit puberty, however, why I wasn't an overweight child, I do not know, because as I think I said in the book, I spent my entire childhood, I didn't even realize this till after I got to goal weight in Bright Line Eating. But looking back on it, I realized I spent my entire childhood looking for candy. Oh. That was my number one mission in life, was to find the candy.
Yeah.
Where's the candy? I liked the kids whose moms had bowls of candy.
Yeah.
I wanted my birthday. Why? Not so I would have all my friends over, but because there was a piñata with candy.
Yeah.
So I was a sugar addict.
Yeah.
You know, but then I started gaining weight, you know, and I was 10 pounds overweight, then 20, then 30. I mean, it just kept creeping up.
Yeah. Over the decades. Totally.
Yeah.
I always talk about it like the stock market, right? Up and down, but overall up, right? Like every few years that goes by, it's like another decade of, you know.
I wish I had the money back that I spent on Weight Watchers. The first time I joined Weight Watchers, I think I was 14.
Wow.
Yeah. And I did Thin Within. I did Janine Roth. I did, you name it. Nothing worked.
Yeah, totally. Lynn Med says, Julia, did you ever struggle with the idea or concept of addiction, seeing yourself as an addict?
Yes. In fact, I was not an addict at all in any way, shape, or form until I realized I was. And that I used to feel really sorry for addicts. Oh, those poor people.
Yeah.
So glad I'm not one of those. I'm a lot of things, but I'm not an addict, I used to say.
So did you accept that label, like just as soon as you watched my videos and you're like, oh, okay, I guess I am a food addict?
No, I didn't. I thought, you know, sugar and flour are addictive drugs. So that doesn't make me an addict just because the culture forced sugar and flour at me in everywhere I look.
Yeah.
No, it wasn't until, and this brings me back around to my question, I'm addicted to quantities. Somebody asked you on a call or something this week, like, does she have to own the label of addict? And I knew what you would say, but somehow or other in that, I realized, I realized before this that I'm an addict, because if it's not food, now it's shopping or something else. But, you know, when your addiction is, when your fix is being, you know, when you're using, you're not aware of how much you need it, right?
Right.
I am addicted to quantities.
Yeah.
If I eat a little bit too much, I'm going to eat a lot too much.
Yeah.
And it can be asparagus, you know, it can be Brussels sprouts. Is there science on that yet? On why are quantities addictive? Like, that's not leptin anymore.
No, it might be dopamine. I don't know that there is. I don't know that there is. No, we know about it here in our community. You're so not alone. I mean, it's clear as day to us that for many of us, just pure quantities can be an issue. You know, so much so that some of the sort of really old school folks won't do like a really big salad, for example. You know what I mean? Like they'll even go that far to like make sure that, you know, they're not putting 5 or 6 ounces of spring mix, you know, which is super voluminous, into a big bowl, because they make sure to keep their just sort of.
Well, for me, it's a very fine line because,
yeah,
excuse me, I know there's the science on satiety, and that's true for me too. If I'm too hungry, I'm in trouble.
Yeah.
But if I eat too much, I'm in trouble. I need to be right in the pocket.
Thank God for the digital food scale, right? Because it allows us to. Like that's the beauty of the, you know, like that amount is what works.
And that is freedom.
A little, not too more. I know, right? Yeah, totally.
Yeah.
So the follow-up question, so just back to our question from Lynn. So you did struggle with the concept or idea of addiction. Are you saying that, and she wants to know, how did you come to the place of acceptance around it? Are you saying that you didn't accept yourself as a food addict or even a sugar flour addict at the beginning? And you're only now coming to see yourself as an addict at all?
I accepted it, I think, maybe, it wasn't like a moment. It was in the first year of Bright Line Eating. It was probably before I got to goal weight. But it was on a call or something where it just suddenly dawned on me, like, because I don't like labels either, you know, if they turn into a box. But before they turn into a box, they can provide freedom, because they actually help us normalize and see, you know, it's like, oh, it explains things.
Yeah, totally.
And it suddenly explained me to me. I realized, oh, and it's helped me have compassion for myself.
Yeah.
Like, you know, I have a broken brain. I just do. And it still is. And I trust that. And it's like someone who, you know, I need glasses too. I have bad eyes.
Yeah.
So I wear glasses, and now it's not a problem, right?
Right.
So it's like I have a food addict brain, and I do bright line eating, and so now it's not a problem.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think of it the same way. And like you said, once you accept a certain condition or state, you know, of affairs, then it licenses solutions or options or paths, you know. Like if you didn't accept that your vision isn't great, you wouldn't wear glasses, and then you just wouldn't function as well, right?
Right.
That's kind of how I see it. I see it as pretty empowering.
It is.
So you've been in bright line eating for 5 years, coming up on 5 years, June 5th. Help us feel the timeline of things. So at first you didn't see yourself as an addict at all. How many years in are you starting to like accept the notion?
It goes deeper and deeper, I think. Yeah, I really had to accept it when I wasn't having any trouble with food, and I started having trouble with shopping, which you do not take that seriously because it's the one thing you do not have trouble with. But I can assure you it is and getting into a nice, cute little body is a perfect excuse.
Right.
Right? Everybody goes, oh, but you just lost all that weight. And it's like, yeah, but I don't need 20,000. I have so much.
Little
and
tops
it's
and little jeans and little, yeah, totally.
And it's the same kind of party in my head, you know?
Yeah.
So yeah. And so what I've done now before the pandemic is I transferred that. I got it. I just accepted, okay, I need something to be all excited about. And I got into pickleball, and now I'm addicted to pickleball, and then they took it away from me.
Oh, sweetie.
But it'll come back.
So just saying, I totally respect shopping addiction. I know it's real. I just don't have it. I don't really have gambling addiction either. And I respect that one too. They're both.
I would have that.
I would too, if I spent enough time. I keep thinking about trying to learn Texas Hold'em. It's probably not a good idea. I mean, I already play, but like, I want to win at Thanksgiving, you know? I always come.
Oh, yeah.
Anyway.
Oh, yeah, you're competitive. I've seen that.
Yeah, totally.
In a fun way.
Lori Isadori says, maintaining for 2.5 years. Any tips?
It's kind of a catch-22. You have to trust yourself that you can't trust yourself. Like when I've heard people, I've listened to 5 years worth of coaching calls and every other kind of call.
Yep.
The people who gain it all back they lost their humility in some way. They all have a different story, right? And maybe I'm not using the right words, but they somehow were able to believe that this would be okay.
Yeah.
So it's like I remind myself every day. It's like, if I don't wear these glasses, I don't see unless I put my contacts in. But if I don't correct my vision, it's not like, oh, now I can see. I don't need corrective vision. No, I see because I have corrective vision. And I am not a naturally thin person. I will never be a naturally thin person. I have a pickle brain. I know I have a pickle brain, and I trust that that this is easier. Like people say, is it hard? And yeah, it is still hard for me in some ways. But Susan, it is about 1,000 times easier than being morbidly obese.
Yeah.
It's so much easier. And, you know, I just never want to go back.
Yeah.
Ever. And I want everybody to have this, the way that everybody now has a smoke-free elevator and movie theater. Like you you really are the world changer. I also think, and I don't think I've ever told you this, I think you have created probably the world's largest community support group.
AA?
Well, but like, I feel like if I went to any country in the world when this thing is over, this pandemic thing, I could post in Bright Lifers, I'm going to wherever.
Yeah.
And I'd have somebody to meet there. Does AA do that?
Oh yeah, totally.
Oh, okay. Well, I don't know.
You'd have to go to a meeting, right? You'd have to find the meeting list and go to a meeting, but then totally. Yeah. Yeah.
So maybe an online support group.
Yeah, maybe. I don't know what other,
Anyway, I know the world right now needs love. And besides freedom from food addiction, you are spreading love. Look at us. We're all so different. We come from different economic backgrounds, different races, different cultures, different politics, different religions. And when we meet inside a Bright Line eating community, there is safety and love.
Yeah, I feel that. So the main tips I hear you sharing for Lori Isadori are don't get cocky, don't get complacent, basically.
And I need to, okay, I also, this is probably the most important. Because my life was in cultural norms, I really understand how we are pack animals and we need a culture to fit in with. Mm-hmm. So the external culture, the mainstream culture, thinks that the kind of food that's normal is actually poison for me. Yeah. So I need this community. And I listen to calls. I don't always post anymore on Facebook, but I sign up to, do the courses, some of them. Like I need the connection to this community because it makes me normal.
Totally. And it's so funny. I was just talking on the phone with a Bright Lifer this morning, and her program had practically unraveled in 24 hours. I mean, she salvaged it. She didn't go eat a bunch of stuff, and she got home and she called me, she got grounded. But here's what happened. She went to pick up her kids at her in-laws, and she stayed overnight there because it was a drive away, hours. And her father-in-law was like watching her make her food, and like she was on a call, right? And he's like, do you call those people every day? And she was like, yep, I make this call every morning. And he kind of looked at her, and then he like watched her weigh her vegetables, and he didn't say anything. He's just watching her. And from those two little instances, just that, the story of judgment that she made up in her mind, right? Suddenly, like, she had brought most of her dinner, but not all of it. They didn't have what she, blah, 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 blah. Suddenly she's like, she's mad as a cut snake. She's like insane, right? And she's like, now all of a sudden her saboteur is telling her that she can justify some honey and something else, whatever. She didn't eat them, but like all of a sudden the thought was there. She'd been completely peaceful about food the day before. But it's so true, Julie. I was so glad she called me and we talked it through. And I told her to go post in Bright Lifers too about that experience, because, we really are herd animals, just like you just said. And with one moment of perceived judgment or exclusion out there in the world, our identity and our conviction and what we're doing, like, she started to have thoughts of like, maybe this really is too extreme and I can't do this forever. And maybe, maybe I'm not going to belong, and should I really expose my kids to, blah, 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 right? It's so true. We need to stick together. And
I've had the same mastermind group for almost 5 years.
Woo!
We think we might be one of the oldest, except I thought of like 4 of them that I know that are older than us, but
mine's in there, right? We just celebrated 5 years on May 21st. So
we'll be 5 in August.
Wow. That's epic.
Yeah.
And you guys meet once a week?
Yep.
Do you have a policy that you don't meet unless everyone can be there?
No. we will sometimes meet, sometimes we change the meeting, and sometimes we meet without the person who can't be there. We usually try to call each other though, you know, if somebody misses the call, we want to check in.
Yeah.
And one of them, Jenny, I talk to sometimes, you know, more often during the week. Julia works for you and doesn't always have time to be on the phone. But yeah.
She keeps things together over here.
Yeah, she does.
Jenny Brown Hazelden, Julia Harold.
Yeah, Katie's not with us anymore.
Okay.
So
we have 3 left.
Yeah. And we're very committed. We'll probably be together for life. And I have a buddy who I don't think we've ever officially called each other buddy, but we check in almost every day, if not every day. Lois, who was in your first boot camp.
Lois Boyd, she posted here. She's here. She said,
"Hi, Lois.
I love Julia. She's not only a bestie, she's also helped me solve most of my stomach issues. She's the best." Yeah, I love Lois Boyd. She is old school. She was in the very first boot camp. She's too.
Yeah.
So
yeah. So having enough people who are like us is probably number 1, and then number 2 is don't get cocky.
Yeah, I love those tips. All right. Lisa Gonzalez asks, question, could quantity addiction have to do with the stretch receptors in the stomach? Yeah, could be. I don't know that we have any, you know, smoking gun evidence on that, but that could be one of the feedback mechanisms that could be sort of letting the brain know, hey, you know, we just ate over a certain amount. I mean, the phenomenology of it seems to be, just like Julia was saying earlier, that you're safe up to a certain point, right? If you eat too little, you get hungry and you want to eat more for other reasons. But the addiction piece kicks in after a certain amount of volume. So once you hit a certain amount of volume, then there's this, it's almost like a trap door opens and then you become a bottomless pit. Then suddenly there's this voracious urge to just eat more, which is weird. Like a normal brain rejects food beyond a certain point. It's like, no, I'm really full, like I'm stuffed. And it's so bizarre, right, to simultaneously actually feel that stuffed feeling and still the mouth, the brain, and the elbow bending, you still want to shovel more food into your mouth. It's a really bizarre thing.
Sometimes it's more than an urge. I couldn't stop if I wanted to.
Yeah.
You know, and so I have to take those foods. Like right now, I don't do cherries because if I eat one cherry, I eat the bag of cherries. Yeah. And I don't know how not to. And so I'll rotate them out for a while and then my brain will calm down about them again, you know. But I have another thing I always wanted to ask you about. So I've stopped saying at the end of the day, did I have a bright line day? Because I get triggered into shame about that. And what I say instead is, did I do the very best I could given the brain I have today? And I know what that means. I know when I've done my best or when I just kind of, you know, let loose. You know what I mean? And my goal is to just do the very, very, very best I can do every day. And if I can say yes to that, then I had a bright line day. So do I have your blessing on that, or do you want to argue with me?
Can I just say, I think it's so funny how people come for blessing, right? It's almost like, you know, I need your blessing.
You were the duck. I imprinted on you, and I need the mama duck to say it's okay.
I mean,
or not.
And you know what I always say, right? Do what works for you. Do what gives you peace. It sounds like a very powerful question, right? Did I do the best?
And for me too, what it means is, did I stay awake in this moment? Did I not go unconscious? Like, if I found myself eating too many cherries, was I asking every step of the way, you know, please, would you please stop? Please stop. Please stop. You know, like maybe now you can stop and take a deep breath. Like, there was always a part of me and it doesn't happen that often, you know, that I can't stop, but sometimes it does. And I don't want to say that I failed that day. It's like the broken part of my brain won the war that day, but I was in there fighting.
Yeah. It's so interesting, this question. It's so interesting. I don't know, sweetheart. I don't know. You know, I mean, I guess there's so many nuances to your question, right? Or to this situation, right? And I just want to stop for a second and just say, like, I hear the tenderness there, right? Like, you know, you're 5 years into bright line eating, and sometimes with quantities of bright foods, right?
Plants,
all plant-based bright food. Like, we're not talking about maraschino cherries. We're talking about organic, probably locally grown, like amazing, deep, dark, rich red cherries, right? With pits in them, you know, like, so sometimes your brain still gallops away, which I relate to too, right? Like, I have a brain that is susceptible to galloping away. Do I really support you in radical levels of self-compassion about that, and finding ways to, like, really notice where shame might come up and not feed into any practices that would feed that shame, you know, like saying, did I have a bright day today? Under those circumstances feels like not a helpful question, right? Because there's a part of you that just goes to a place of shame around that, right?
Like, I get an F.
Right, totally.
And always, do I want to do better? Yes. Like, it's not that it's good enough, but I didn't fail. You know, I did my best.
What you're noticing is, like, you're putting in so much effort and you want credit for that effort. Like, probably on some of those days, you're putting in even more effort, right?
Right.
And you recognize that you're dealing with a state of powerlessness, like that's beyond your control. Like, your brain literally
it feels like a switch flips.
Yeah.
And, you know, usually on the research question, you know, how soon did you resume? I always resume immediately from whatever.
Which is epic, Julia. Can I just say how amazing that is? That's epic. That is so not trivial. That's not a little thing to just like, oh, and then I resume immediately. Like, that's incredible. That's incredible. I think I had 3 breaks in 2019. And I think it took me like a week to get back. I was like straight out sugar and flour binging all week, you know, and it took me a while. Like, I would stop for a second, but then I would be back at it. And I reached that point of extreme powerlessness too. I've been sharing lately, you know, I'm bright consecutively for 8 months now, which is lovely, you know, but like, I'm like you, I have a brain that's extremely susceptible to these profound, you know, and I have days too. If I've just recently been in the food, I am aware that sometimes I just can't draw a bright breath right then. Like, I just can't, right? Like, trying to force myself to do that it's not helpful. It's like trying to be 6 feet tall. It's just not happening right then, you know? But I know that in a little bit, you know, that opportunity will open back up again. And so the key is just to watch and wait. It's the double Dutch jump ropes that I talk about. You just stand there and watch the lay of the land until you can jump back in. So I guess where my hesitation is, and I'm just being frank, is, I love you asking yourself the question, did I do the very, very best I could today with the brain that I have? Whether then the corollary is, therefore I had a bright day. Like, if I ate the whole bag of cherries, right? Nowhere near, I know that wasn't 6 ounces of cherries, right? And I ate them compulsively and I just devoured them, right? And I felt out of control. Do I ask, did I do the very best I could today with the brain I have? Yes, I did. Resumed immediately, was super present with that process, like breathing, watching the double Dutch jump ropes, trying to get back on track. Maybe that just happened when the bag of cherries was gone. Then I committed to no cherries in the house for a bit. Best I could do. Does that mean it was a bright day? What do you think?
It probably wasn't a bright day, which is why I probably don't like the question, is it a bright day? Like let's just shelve that question.
Yeah.
That is a trick question for me.
Yeah. Or not a helpful question. Yeah.
Not a helpful question for me.
Yeah.
What I just realized as you were sounding that out is a third piece to answer that woman's question of what helps.
Yeah.
Is my identity. Am I still a bright line eater?
Yeah.
And I am always a bright line eater, even when I'm not eating brightly.
Yes, me too. Totally.
And that is an essential piece. My identity, which is why I don't like answering the question, no, I didn't have a bright day, because that attacks my identity. And I get to be a bright line eater. I'm still a bright line eater.
Yes, you are.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So I think that's it. So I have your permission, I take it then, to just not ask that question.
Yeah. And in parts language, like I just want to love on that part that is concerned that if there was a day that wasn't a bright day, that might mean you might be like, asked to leave the room, and like you don't get a seat anymore at the bright line eating, party table. You know what I mean? Like,
yeah,
your seat is never in question, like I just want to love on that part that is concerned that the identity takes a hit then. Like, I don't think it has to, right?
Yeah.
You're such a love. And you're so devoted to our community and this way of life. And it shows in a million ways. And, oh, sweetheart.
Well, and that reminds me of why, one reason I'm glad you're offering Bright Line Mind again is I just remembered I think there's science in there on how perfectionism isn't helpful.
Yes, there is a unit on perfectionism. Yeah, a whole unit on it. Yeah, so you took Bright Line Mind, and you were sharing with me that you think this is just the perfect time to offer it again. It's been 3 years since we offered it. Yeah. Not by design. I didn't expect it to go 3 years. I expected to offer it every year, but we just—
I know. I've kept asking you, right? Like every few months, I'm like, when is Bright Line Mind coming back?
Yeah, because you love this course, right? And
I love it. I love positive psychology. I wish I had the money if I was starting over again in the world, I would want to major in positive psychology. And I've looked into it, and there's actually online courses that I'm sure don't cover any more than what you cover that are like thousands of dollars. And there are books, I got all the books, and I'll tell you, they're boring.
They're not boring. Just saying. My lectures are not boring.
No, your lectures are, see, the books, I'm like, okay, so I'd rather do your lecture any day. You are the best teacher in the world. I saw your Facebook Live yesterday, and I can see how you would have pain about not being a professor, because I think that is like one of your number one gifts, is being a professor. And so, and you got me with science. So, and I love, because it's about empowerment, right? And change. And there was even a unit in there towards the end that you said, well, I don't know how interested you guys are going to be in this. And it was about institutions.
Yeah.
That was one of my favorite.
Yeah. Cool.
So no, the positive psychology, the idea of studying people who are doing well to see what are they doing, and actual hands-on tips and tricks. And it has helped me now, to remember to, not look for the people wearing the black, but to see all the people wearing the white, the black, whatever, that thing, the positive, whatever. Look for the good. Where's the good? And how to raise our level of contentment.
Yeah.
It's just, we need it right now because I got to tell you, these are some sucky times we're in.
Yeah, they're unusual, aren't they? Unusually
They
hard.
are. And people are suffering and struggling, and there's fear. And how do we make it through? And I think positive psychology has a ton to offer. I'm in there as a VIP poster, and I'm really looking forward to taking it all over again.
Totally. And just for people to know, the Brightline Mind course is launching today with a webinar that I'm doing just an hour after we get off this Facebook Live. The webinar starts at 3 p.m. Eastern, noon Pacific. And in the show notes and the pinned comment at the top, there's a link to the webinar registration page. So if you want to join me, the webinar is called 7 Scientific Secrets of Staying Happy in Uncertain Times, because I like alliteration. 7 Scientific Secrets of Staying Happy in Uncertain Times.
Well, and can I just also add, because I don't think I've heard you say this, you don't have to have a food problem to get something from this course.
Oh yeah, it's actually not about food at all. It's all about the science of flourishing and living the happiest life you can.
Right.
This webinar is going to go into a lot of subjects. It's going to be epic. So please tune in. Please tune in. Register at the link right here. And Tony Jardine wants to know what other Brightline courses you've taken over the years. She says, Julia, what Brightline courses have you taken over the years?
I've taken every single one except Brightline Freedom.
Okay.
Every single solitary one, some of them more than once. I took Brightline Healing 1 and 2, not the first time, as you may recall, but the second time. And I took Reboot Resume both times. I've been a house leader in boot camps 5 times.
Woo!
What else have you done?
Just happened, Brightline Grit.
Oh, I did Brightline Grit. Love it. Wonderful. If we're allowed to have favorites, Brightline Mind, besides the boot camp, I needed the boot camp as an addict. So if somebody out there is going, if it's one or the other and you're a food addict, do the boot camp is my advice. I don't know yours.
Yeah, sure, totally.
Right. But other than that, Brightline Mind, because I'm a science, I just love all the science.
Yeah.
You can get me to change when you show me a study that was done and people did this and that and here's what they found. And now I'm all in. So I just found it fascinating, and you present it, you make it all come alive in a way that I happen to think you're probably the best positive psychology teacher in the world, but that's me.
Oh, thank you, sweetie. Thank you, thank you, thank you. We have a bunch of more comments. Jan Harrelson says about what we were just talking about. This is an incredibly rich discussion. I am a Brightline eater regardless of what happened today. Yes, yes. And Jan Harrelson also says, Julia Carroll, you are a gift. I met you in person at the family reunion in 2018, but I already knew you from your posts. You continue to inspire and teach me. I'm on such a circuitous journey, and I need so much to keep learning from you. Thank you.
Oh, I remember her. She's wonderful.
Oh, sweet. And Samantha Brown says, I'm so delighted that I went to the family reunion. It was a wonderful coincidence in the food line between addicts to meet you. I love you, Julia.
Yeah, I stole the last bit of guacamole from her.
Did you? Right out from under her, right? Just took the spoon and dolloped it right on your plate.
We had been out of it, and I had gone from thing to thing looking for it, and I don't do oils and I can't do the nuts there because they're roasted. And there was one little bit of guacamole in one bowl, and she had the spoon in her hand on the other side, but she was talking, and I was like, that's mine. And I took it, and then I looked at her, and I was kind of in horror, and I said, I'm really sorry, I'm a 10-10-10, and I need my guacamole. Afterwards, I went and found her, and I apologized. It was one of my anybody who knows me knows that is so not me.
Oh, so funny.
That is a food addict, right?
Totally.
Right? And she totally forgave me because Samantha is a wonderful person.
She is. She's a dear. So
and I vowed I would never steal guacamole from anybody again.
That's awesome.
But, I'm just saying I was there first.
Yeah. The 6th grader in you just needs it to be known. Just saying. I was there first.
I undercut her spoon.
Wait. Okay, no. All right, so I need to tell this story I need to tell this story. Your sweet husband. Can I tell this story? Is he going to be okay with that?
Sure.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Why can't I remember his name right now? I know his name.
Roland.
Roland, of course. So I'm at your house. This is, I don't know, some months or years ago. I'm at your house, and you are just the consummate host, can I just say. I felt so welcome, and I walked in you just greeted me in the driveway with arms up, and Roland did too, and dog was barking, and I just felt instant, your guest room is just beautifully appointed and immaculate. I know you've remodeled it since, but it was just so homey back then as well. And your whole house is just stunningly gorgeous. And so you've made me this beautiful Brightline meal. You gave me a tour, and then you did the Brightline thing, which is to give me a tour of the fridge too. And here's the food we have. You could have this or this, and we have this and that. And your refrigerator is like a Better Homes and Gardens version of a Brightline eating refrigerator, like all the beautiful
and the
containers.
Kitchen safe where I lock my nuts up.
The safe where you lock your nuts up.
Tony wanted me to mention the kitchen safe where I lock the nuts up.
Yeah, totally. She's not kidding, everyone. She has a container that locks, so that that's the way that she can still engage with nuts, is that it's literally locked after dinner time, and it cannot be accessed until the next day.
Right.
It's awesome. So I'm at dinner, I believe I was at dinner, and your husband comes over to me, and he sits down, and he looked grave. There was gravitas to his expression. He said, "I have something I need to share with you." I said, "Oh, of course, yeah, of course, lay it on me. What's up?" And he said, "You are such a gift to me." He said, "I'm a 1 or a 0 on the susceptibility scale."
He's like a -3 on the susceptibility. He doesn't even want to eat.
He's a beanpole. He doesn't think about food. He doesn't care about food.
He resents it.
But he said, "I have had a lifelong problem of a skin condition that's so bad that my skin itches and scabs, and then the scabs peel and break and crack, and I bleed everywhere." And so it's been so bad. This eczema has been so bad my whole life that I wear only black t-shirts. I have black sheets because the blood from the cracking and the bleeding will bleed onto the sheets and ruin the sheets. And he said, "I've done everything. I've gone to every specialist. I've tried every dietary thing. I've tried every medication. I've tried every cream. I've tried every, protocol. And I just got to the point where this is my life, and my skin's going to crack and bleed and itch my whole life." And he said, "It's torture." And then you came into my wife's life. She lost, 80 pounds. Her health changed. And suddenly there weren't all these crackers and, other foods in the house. So I'm not eating. What?
I was a baker, so I was always baking him things.
Got it. And
for
he's like,
him, right? Not for me.
Right.
For him.
Right, of course. And he's like, "So suddenly I'm eating differently." And he said, "My skin's cleared up. It's just cleared up." Is his skin clear still, Julia?
Yeah. He'll have a sandwich. But he doesn't, for the most part, he doesn't eat flour or sugar. He also, at the same time, I was turning into a plant-based eater. So he also no longer has chicken and dairy, but no processed foods, and his no sugar, and he doesn't really miss it. And he's a lot healthier for it. And he's very grateful.
Yeah. And with tears in his eyes, he just said, "My skin isn't scabbing or cracking or flaking or bleeding or itching." And he said, "I cannot even tell you how this changes my world. It's like living a whole different life."
I think he was allergic to flour and sugar or something.
I think he was allergic. My guess is flour. My guess is that it was something in the flour. I don't know why that's my hunch, but it is. My guess is it was the crackers and totally. It was extremely moving. I hadn't thought deeply at that point about the sort of unintended cascade of health benefits that family members would likely, because most of the people who do Brightline Eating are female and are largely in charge of bringing the food into the house, right? That's a generalization, but it's a true, sort of average, right? Or whatever. And so there's a lot of people indirectly impacted when a woman in a household starts to buy and eat and prepare different foods, you know? So anyway, it was just a very moving thing. I'll never forget.
He's also so sweet. To this day, if he's having something that I don't eat or something that I have trouble with, you know, that I do eat, he'll keep it in the trunk of his car. Like he agreed early on. I showed him your video of the, you know, for family and friends.
Yeah.
And he cried and he said, I want to do this for you, honey. What do you need me to do? And to this day, he'll not eat at night. Sometimes I'll ask him to, you know, take the rice crackers out of the plastic bag. For some reason, the sound of crinkly plastic wrap is very triggering for me. I don't want to hear the sound of like one of those bags of things, you know?
Yeah.
And he won't do it in the house. So I have to commend him for just being, but that got him not to eat that stuff.
Yeah.
And so his skin cleared. Yeah. And he has beautiful skin now.
Oh, love it. Deb Babcock says, I'm a dermatology PA and recommend bright line eating all the time to eczema and psoriasis patients. That's so interesting. Gosh, you learn something new every day. Oh my gosh. Oh, Julia, you know, could you speak a little bit? Because we're running out of time here and we've got a bunch of closing comments that people have. But could you speak a little bit about just the change in your health and your body and just your experience living? You mentioned a little bit about like age. You don't feel 80 years old anymore. But like your numbers have just changed so much. I read your initial numbers. I don't think I read your final numbers, right? So your total cholesterol was 323. Now it went down to 155. That's years ago.
Oh, it's below 150.
It's below 150 now.
Yeah.
Triglycerides were 299. Do you know what they are now?
No, but they're in like, you know, I have a naturopath and she said I'm her poster child. You know, I would be her poster child for good health if she didn't know my before and after.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, yeah, no, all of my numbers are like an athlete.
Well, what we've got in the book is triglycerides from 299 to 85, blood pressure from 160 over 132 down to 96 over 64, you know, weight from 205 pounds or something down to 122 or 120s. Oh, Julia, and what, you know, you often tell me that that if you could go back in time to that moment and like there was literally a literal choice on the table of like win the mega Powerball jackpot lottery or get this bright line eating transformation, you wouldn't blink and you'd pick the bright line eating transformation.
There's nothing. I wouldn't trade this for anything in the world. Nothing in the world. I would have given, if you had said to me on my birthday when I was 58, and I was telling myself the truth about my heart's deepest desire, if you had asked me, what would you be willing to pay for that? I would have said everything. You can have my marriage, you can have my friends, you can have my house, you can have anything. I wanted more than anything. I used to look at movies. I'm a big movie fan. And I would lose the story because I was watching how peaceful must that be for that thin person to be able to wear that shirt and just not have a big belly there. I would watch So You Think You Can Dance, and I love dancing, and just think, wow, to be able to move like that, you know. And now I wish there was a So You Think You Could Dance for older women, because I think I'd win.
Yeah.
Woo woo! I love it. I love it that one of the non-scale victories, I used to have to force myself to exercise. I don't force myself to exercise. I want to move. I got to move. That's something I've learned about myself. Like, I got to move. I get, you know, that NEAT thing, the non-exercise.
Activity thermogenesis, non-exercise activity thermogenesis, yeah.
Right. I got to do it. You know, I'm always doing it and I love it. And you do a guided visualization in the boot camp, the crossing the line.
Yeah.
The first time I did it, I cried because I couldn't imagine the life you were describing on the other side. Yeah. Then when I was a house leader and I would listen to everything in the boot camp so that I could respond to my boot campers, I heard it again in a right-sized body, and I cry. You always make me cry. I tell you that. You haven't made me cry today. Yay, me. But usually you make me cry like in 2 seconds. But I started crying because what you were describing is my life. I wake up in the morning, I feel my hip bones. Yeah. I get up, I go to my closet, I say, which of the too many clothes did this shopping addict buy that you know, what am I going to wear today? Everything fits. There's no question about it. Everything is, you know, for my size. I couldn't have imagined that before. And also, I know, like, for my relationship with me, I know that I'm doing everything I possibly can to take care of me. And so I believe that I love me. And I didn't used to know. I would tell myself I loved me, but I would be like, how can you say you love you when you're clearly not taking care of yourself, you know?
Yeah.
So, and I think I owe you my life, because with all the times we're going through right now, if I hadn't done Bright Line Eating, I was well on my way to being an alcoholic. I don't know if I ever told you that, because I didn't used to have an alcohol problem. But in the last 5 years before BLE, I had started making organic fancy cocktails. And I think I would have just been in the wine and cheese and crackers. And I think I'd be dead. I really do.
Yeah.
That's my belief. If it wasn't for you, Susan Pierce Thompson, I think I would be dead, or very, very, very close to it.
Yeah.
And I know you've saved probably in the hundreds of thousands of lives already. Really. And I know there's a cost to doing that. And so I could never be anything but totally, you know, you say, now I get it, like that thing, you save a life. And now, you know, like I would just forever, anything you need.
Sweetheart. You know, that lands for me in a couple places. Like, there's a part of me that still wants to, like, say, no, it was Bright Line Eating. Like, don't attach that to me as a person. And you and I know each other well enough that I know that you insist that it attaches to me as a person.
Yeah, I think you were chosen. Have you ever heard Elizabeth Gilbert talk about how really good ideas are life things that float around, and if one person doesn't take it, then it finds home in another person? You're the person. Like, somebody needed to have exactly the right kind of personality to handle all the pressure, your level of competitiveness, of intelligence, of understanding science, of teaching, and of being a really addict. I won't use the words.
Yep.
You know, you were the perfect mix of what is needed to, I knew about FA. I wasn't going to have anything to do with any of that. Okay. So it wasn't the food plan. It wasn't even the word leptin, something, because you didn't even get to leptin in that first video. Like, I watched you, and, something in me, deep inside of me, said, shut up and listen to this woman. She's telling the truth. Just do it her way. And I did. And why I did, I will never know.
So you've motivated me to go find this quote that's in my house, because I hear everything you're saying. And there's something you have done. You're not alone in it, but it's a particular gift that certain people in Bright Line Eating have given to me. And I have this quote. So here we are to my tea bar. So this is my little tea bar, water filter, green tea matcha, which I drink every morning. And in the corner here is this framed quote. So on a field trip here in the SPT house, going to go back in my office, and I want to read this quote to you. It means so much to me, and it really speaks to the gift that you have given to me. So this quote is by Abdul Baha, who was a Persian mystic who lived in the late 1800s, early 1900s, in all over the Middle East, mostly Haifa, Israel. And he said, "At the gate of the garden, some stand and look within, but do not care to enter. Others step inside, behold its beauty, but do not penetrate far. Still others encircle this garden, inhaling the fragrance of the flowers. Having enjoyed its full beauty, pass out again by the same gate. But there are always some who enter, and becoming intoxicated with the splendor of what they behold, remain for life to tend the garden." And you bless me so immeasurably, because I couldn't do this by myself. And you're one of a core group of original people who just decided to stay forever and help and spread the word and love on me. You love on me individually so intensely, Julia. It's so beautiful. Thank you for the gift you are to me.
Okay, so you had to make me cry.
You made me cry. You did it first.
Oh, God.
All right. I need a little minute before I'm going to go deliver this next webinar. So
I'm going to be on there and listening. Phil.
It's going to be so fun. Register, people. Register. All right. You got some love coming. You ready? You ready?
Yeah.
Betsy Hayes says, Julia jumped on here, and Julia is articulating exactly how I feel in this moment. Deb Babcock said, "You give us hope. I'm 62 and weight loss is so hard as we get older. Older women rock." Jeannie Smith says, "Awesome, Julia. Thank you." And Susan, you are a wonderful hostess. Andy Strauss says, "Julia, so grateful for you." June Martin Freeman says, "Thank you, Julia. You are a gem." Stephanie Foreman Shed says, "Julia, you have always been a role model to me, and to watch you embrace this new way of being only inspires me more. Miss having you in my life on a daily basis, but so awesome to hear your voice today and to listen to your story again. I love you, Julia."
She was my executive assistant at Americans for Non-Smokers' Rights.
Oh, whoa, you guys go way back. That's amazing.
She was the other part of my brain. Yeah.
Linda Steele says, "Susan, please don't sell yourself short by any means. Your work saves lives. If you could see the vast hope and return to health and joy that Bright Line Eating is promoting, you would never be able to wrap your head around it. Thank you does not begin to express how we feel about you and the depth of our gratitude, but thank you." Sue Treforo says, "I love this woman, defiant, belligerent." Sherry Zettel says, "Thank you for continuing to inspire me. I'm on day 6 of the 14-day challenge, and I love the book. Thank you both." Jane Grossman says, "Julia is a rock star." And the last word goes to Patricia O'Connor, who says, "I love everything about Julia Carroll." Oh. Julia, thank you so much for joining us for this Facebook Live interview. Brightline Mind is coming up. It's your favorite Brightline Eating course ever, and that's coming from an old-time Brightliner who knows what we do around here, and she says, "This is the best course." It's not offered very often, folks. I don't know that it's going to be offered again for years. I don't know. So it's launching today in about an hour. Join me for the webinar. The registration link is in the show notes. Julia Carroll, I just love you so much. I feel such a soul sisterhood with you. And just thank you for still being here. And thank you for joining me today. Thank you so much.
I love you. I love you. And thank you to all your team.
Yeah, thanks, team. Another beautiful Facebook Live done and dusted. We're going to sign off. Bye, everyone.
Bye.